Can't stop thinking about this morning. You taste like honey and sin. Tonight, same hotel? I'll bring the champagne you liked. I stared at my phone screen, reading the text message from my husband Blake over and over. My hands trembled as I stood there in the produce section of Whole Foods, a container of strawberries frozen in my grip. This morning, Blake had supposedly been at a client meeting in Boston. The hotel he mentioned, I knew exactly which one. The Ashford Grand. $400 a night. Discreet entrance. The same hotel receipt I'd found in his wallet 3 weeks ago. My phone buzzed again. Shit. Delete that. Wrong person. Don't read it. Too late, Blake. Much too late, because what I did next changed everything. I left my cart right there in the aisle, walked to my car, and within 90 minutes, I'd called his mother, packed my bags, found his burner phone, and discovered 14 months of lies that would cost him everything he owned. Hello, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Voice of Auntie Katie. If you're new here, welcome to a place where we tell real stories about real people facing real betrayals. And if you're a returning subscriber, thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for being here, for sharing these stories, and for being part of this community. Before we get into today's story, I want to take a moment to pray for each one of you watching this right now. Heavenly Father, I lift up every person who has found their way to this video today. Lord, you know their struggles, their heartaches, their silent battles. I pray for strength where there is weakness, for clarity where there is confusion, for peace where there is chaos. Bless their finances, their families, their health, and their hearts. May they find wisdom in every decision they make today and always. Protection over their homes, favor in their endeavors, and joy in unexpected places. In your mighty name, amen. Now, let's get into this story. And trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end, because what Mallory did to her cheating husband was absolutely brilliant. The Tuesday that changed my life forever started like any other. I woke up at 6:30, made coffee, kissed Blake goodbye as he headed out for his supposed client meeting in Boston. He was wearing his navy suit, the one I'd helped him pick out last year. He smelled like the expensive cologne he'd started wearing 3 months ago. Love you, he'd said at the door, briefcase in hand, phone already pressed to his ear. Love you too, I'd replied, already thinking about the fabric samples I needed to review for my latest design project. 8 years of marriage. 11 years together total. Our craftsman house in Portland with the blue door I'd painted myself. 2 cats, Friday date nights, Sunday morning pancakes. A life that looked perfect from the outside, but perfection is just a mask, isn't it? And masks always slip eventually. I spent the morning working from home, my small interior design firm keeping me busy with 3 concurrent projects. Around noon, I realized we were out of groceries. Blake had promised to shop over the weekend, but that client emergency had come up. Again. So there I was at 2:47 in the afternoon, standing in Whole Foods, choosing between organic and regular strawberries, when my entire world exploded. The text came through. I glanced at it casually, expecting something mundane. Running late or pick up milk. Instead, I got, can't stop thinking about this morning. You taste like honey and sin. Tonight, same hotel? I'll bring the champagne you like. The strawberries slipped from my hand. I caught the container before it hit the floor, but my heart had already dropped into my stomach. I read it again. A 3rd time. A 4th. This morning. Blake had been at a meeting. In Boston. He'd left at 7:15. Sent me a text at 9 saying the client was difficult but he'd handle it. The hotel. Same hotel. Which hotel? But I knew. God help me, I knew. The Ashford Grand. The receipt I'd found 3 weeks ago, tucked behind his gym membership card in his wallet. When I'd asked about it, his explanation had been so smooth, so reasonable. Emergency overnight, babe. Client needed hand-holding through a market panic. Company card covered it. You know how these old money types are. I'd believed him. Of course I'd believed him. Why wouldn't I believe my husband? My phone buzzed in my hand. Another message from Blake, shit. Delete that. Wrong person. Don't read it. Wrong person. Wrong person. I stood there in the middle of Whole Foods, surrounded by shoppers pushing carts and debating between kale and spinach, and I felt something cold settle into my chest. Not panic. Not yet. Something else. Something sharp and clear and absolutely calmed. I left the cart where it stood and walked out to my car. My hands shook so badly that it took 3 tries to get my key in the ignition. But my mind was suddenly working with terrifying clarity. I sat in the parking lot and started making a list. Not a crying, devastated wife list. A strategic, methodical, evidence-gathering list, the late nights. The Seattle conference where he forgot to text. The new cologne. The gym membership he suddenly used religiously. The way he took his phone everywhere, even to the bathroom. The password he'd changed on his laptop for security reasons. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The distance in our bed. We'd been trying for a baby for 2 years. 2 years of ovulation tests and scheduled sex and monthly disappointments. 2 years of our bedroom becoming more clinical than romantic. 2 years of growing apart while I thought we were working through it. Apparently, Blake had found a more enjoyable way to work through it. Phone rang. Blake. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately. Again. Finally, a text, Mallory, please. Let me explain. I'm coming home. I had 90 minutes before he could get back from downtown. 90 minutes to decide who I wanted to be in this moment, the crying wife who begged to know why she wasn't enough? The screaming wife who threw his things on the lawn? The broken wife who collapsed under the weight of betrayal? No. None of those. I started the car and drove home. Not speeding, not reckless. Carefully, deliberately. Following every traffic law, our house looked exactly as I'd left it that morning. Blue door. Potted plants on the porch. The welcome mat that said Home Sweet Home that we'd bought together 3 years ago. I unlocked the door and went straight to my office. Opened my laptop. And made a phone call that would change everything. Patricia Holloway speaking. Blake's mother answered on the second ring, her voice cheerful and warm. Patricia, I said, my voice steady as steel. I need to talk to you about Blake. And I need you to listen without interrupting. There was a pause. A long one. Patricia wasn't stupid. She heard something in my tone that made her sit up straighter, I could tell. What's happened? Her voice had changed. The cheerfulness gone. Your son is having an affair, I said simply. I have proof. And I need to know if the beach house in Cannon Beach is available for the next few weeks. The silence stretched. I could hear her breathing, processing. I'll call you back in 5 minutes, she said finally. She called back in 3. The house is yours for as long as you need it. Patricia's voice had transformed completely. Steel wrapped in silk. I've known something was wrong for months. Blake has been different. Evasive. I asked him about it at Easter and he brushed me off. I should have pushed harder. Patricia, it's not your fault, no. But I raised him to be better than this. The house is yours. The code is still 1984. Take whatever time you need. She paused. And Mallory? I'm on your side. Whatever you decide to do, I'm on your side. Tears pricked my eyes for the first time. Not because of Blake's betrayal, but because of this unexpected solidarity from his own mother. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me yet. I'm about to call my son and tell him exactly what I think of men who break their vows. And then I'm calling my lawyer friend, Janet Morrison. She specializes in divorce cases. She's ruthless. After we hung up, I moved with purpose. I had maybe 70 minutes left. I packed 2 suitcases. Clothes, toiletries, laptop, phone chargers. Every photograph of Blake and me together, I'd need those for evidence. My grandmother's ring from the jewelry box, the one Blake had proposed with after I mentioned it was what I'd always wanted. The password notebook where we kept all our accounts. The external hard drive with our shared files, and then I remembered something. Something I'd found 6 months ago and hadn't understood the significance of until this moment. I went to Blake's closet, to the gym bag he took to the athletic club 3 times a week. Unzipped the side pocket. And there it was, a burner phone. When I'd found it before, Blake had been so smooth with his explanation. Work thing, babe. Client confidentiality. Some of these guys are paranoid about their communications. I need a secure line for sensitive conversations. Another lie I'd swallowed whole. I powered it on. It required a password. Blake wasn't as clever as he thought. He used variations of the same codes for everything. I tried 0824, our wedding anniversary. Nothing. Then 1107, his birthday. Nothing. On impulse, I tried 0316. March 16th. The date he proposed to me under the cherry blossoms. The phone unlocked. What I found in those messages made my hands shake again. But not with sadness this time. With rage. Pure, cold rage that felt almost cleansing. Her name was Autumn. Of course it was something seasonal and romantic. Autumn Fletcher. The affair wasn't some spontaneous mistake, some drunken conference hookup he regretted. This was calculated. Planned. A relationship spanning 14 months. 14 months. Longer than we'd been trying for a baby. The messages painted a detailed picture. Hotel rooms. Lunch breaks in parking garages. Lies upon lies upon lies. Every business trip. Every late night. Every excuse, but it was the photos that destroyed something in me. Really, truly destroyed it. Photos of them together. Her in lingerie I recognized from my favorite boutique downtown. The receipts Blake had explained away as client gifts. Photos taken in our bed on the sheets I'd picked out. Photos from our anniversary weekend in Napa that I'd supposedly missed because Blake had to cancel last minute for a work emergency. Except Blake hadn't cancelled. He'd gone. Just not with me. I'd spent that weekend alone, crying, eating ice cream, watching sad movies. While Blake was in Napa with her, sending me texts about how sorry he was to miss our anniversary, how he'd make it up to me. The most recent messages were from this morning. This very morning. Autumn, I can still feel your hands on me. You make me feel alive in ways my husband never did. Blake, leave him. I'm going to leave Mallory. We can finally stop hiding. Autumn, are you sure? I thought you said she'd fight the divorce. Blake, she will. But her design firm is in her name. My investments are solid. We'll be fine. Better than fine. I'll have the prenup reviewed. There might be a clause about infidelity that protects me. She signed it without reading it carefully. Too trusting. Too naive. Autumn, when will you tell her? Blake, soon. I'm waiting for the right moment. Maybe after her big project wraps she'll be too busy to make trouble. I sat on our bed, the bed he'd defiled, and felt the last thread of mercy I might have extended snap completely. He wasn't just cheating. He was strategizing. Planning. Waiting for the optimal moment to destroy my life with minimal inconvenience to his. If you've ever felt that moment of betrayal, that moment when everything you thought was real turns out to be a lie, drop a comment below. You're not alone in this. And hit that like button if you're ready to hear how I fought back. Because what happened next? Blake never saw it coming. My phone rang. Blake calling again. This time, I answered, Mallory, thank God. Listen, that text. I know everything, Blake. My voice was calm. Eerily, unnaturally calm. I found the burner phone. I read all of it. 14 months. Autumn Fletcher from the Newport branch of your firm. The Ashford Grand, room 412. The Napa trip that wasn't cancelled. Our bed. My boutique lingerie on her body. My anniversary that you spent with her. All of it, silence. Absolute, crushing silence. Then, weakly, I can explain. No. You can't. There's no explanation that makes this okay. But here's what's going to happen. I'm leaving. I've already packed. Your mother knows everything, and she's calling Janet Morrison. You remember her? The lawyer friend who tipped Derek Prentice for everything he had in his divorce? That Janet Morrison. Mallory, wait. Please don't do this. I made a mistake. 14 months isn't a mistake, Blake. My voice finally cracked, just a little. It's a choice. Multiple choices. Hundreds of choices. Every single day, you chose to lie to me. Every time you came home and kissed me and asked about my day you'd just been with her. Every time we had scheduled sex because we were trying for a baby, you were already giving someone else what should have been mine alone. I love you, he said desperately. I know I messed up. But I love you. We can fix this. Therapy. Whatever you need. I'll end it with her today. Right now. I'll call her while you're listening and end it. You told her you were going to leave me, I said flatly. You strategized about the prenup. You called me too trusting and naive. You waited for the right moment to destroy my life so I'd be too busy to fight back. You don't love me, Blake. You never did. You loved what I gave you: stability, respectability, a beautiful home, someone to come home to while you had your fun elsewhere. Well, game over. I hung up. Then I blocked his number. Then I forwarded every single message from the burner phone to my own email. Screenshots of every photo. Documentation of everything. I took photos of every credit card statement I could find. Every receipt. Every piece of evidence of his double life. Finally, I composed one last text from my regular phone before blocking him everywhere. Check your email. I've sent our wedding photos to your mother, your brother, your best friends, and the HR department at your firm. Attached to each email is a complete timeline of your affair with Autumn Fletcher, an employee at your own company. I believe that violates several corporate policies about workplace relationships and abuse of power. I've also sent copies to my lawyer. See you in court. I sent it. Then I blocked his number, his email, all his social media. I looked around our bedroom one last time. The life we'd built here. The memories that now felt poisoned. The future that had been a lie. Then I picked up my suitcases, walked down the stairs, and left through our blue door. It closed behind me with a finality that felt strangely like freedom. I loaded my car, backed out of the driveway, and headed north toward Cannon Beach without looking back once. As I drove away from the house we'd built together, I had no idea that Blake's betrayal was about to cost him everything he valued. And I mean everything. His reputation. His job. His money. His family. His future. But that's exactly what happened. And I was there to watch every single moment of it. The beach house sat at the edge of the world, where land met ocean in an endless conversation of waves and shore. 3 bedrooms, wide windows facing the water, hardwood floors that creaked with history. Patricia had owned it for 20 years, a refuge she'd used during her own difficult times. I arrived just after sunset, exhausted in ways that had nothing to do with the 2-hour drive. The key was exactly where Patricia said it would be, under the 3rd flower pot from the left. Inside, the house smelled like salt air and lavender. And when I opened the refrigerator, I found it fully stocked. Wine, cheese, fresh bread, fruit, eggs, butter. Everything I'd need to survive the next few days without having to face the world. On the counter sat a handwritten note: take all the time you need. You deserve better than my son. I'm proud of you for leaving. Patricia. I poured myself a glass of wine and walked out onto the deck. The ocean stretched before me, dark and endless under the emerging stars. My phone sat on the counter inside, buzzing constantly. Blake trying to reach me from different numbers. I'd blocked each one as they came in, then his brother called. Blocked, then his best friend Jeremy. Blocked. Then someone named Autumn Fletcher called from what must have been her personal phone. I stared at her name on the screen for a long moment, feeling nothing but cold contempt. Blocked. I was 3 glasses of wine deep when Patricia finally called. I spoke with Janet, she said without any greeting. She'll take your case. She's already reviewed the prenup Blake had you sign. The infidelity clause is ironclad, he gets nothing. The house, the investments, everything you've built together, it's yours, Patricia. I don't want his money, I said tiredly. I just want out. I just want to be free of him. Darling girl, this isn't about money. Her voice was firm, almost harsh. This is about consequences. Blake needs to understand that actions have consequences. He humiliated you. He violated your trust in the most fundamental way possible. He planned to discard you like garbage when it suited his timeline. You take everything he thought he was protecting. You make him understand what he lost. Her words lit something inside me. A spark of anger that felt cleaner than the grief. More than that, Patricia continued, his affair with Autumn Fletcher, she's a subordinate at his firm, correct? Yes. She works at the Newport branch. He's senior management. That pens the company to liability. Sexual harassment, abuse of power, hostile work environment. Janet thinks they'll settle quickly to avoid a lawsuit. The firm will likely fire him to protect themselves. I sat down heavily on the deck chair. He could lose his job, he should lose his job. What he did was unethical on every level. Professional and personal. Patricia's voice softened slightly. Get some rest tonight. Janet will call you in the morning to start building the case. Document everything you remember. Every lie, every late night, every suspicious moment. We're going to need it all. That night, I slept 10 hours straight. The first real sleep I'd had in years, actually. No alarm set. No husband snoring. No anxiety about ovulation windows or pregnancy tests. Just sleep, deep and dreamless. Janet Morrison called at 9 the next morning. Her voice was crisp, professional, and somehow comforting in its absolute confidence. Mrs. Holloway, may I call you Mallory? Please, Mallory, I've reviewed everything Patricia sent me. The text messages, the photos from the burner phone, the timeline. This is one of the most clear-cut cases I've handled in years. Your husband was incredibly sloppy. Sloppy how? He documented everything. The hotel charges on credit cards you have access to. The phone records. The photos with metadata showing dates and locations. He got comfortable, which means he got careless. That works in our favor. Janet's keyboard clicked in the background. Here's what we're going to do. I'm filing papers today. Not next week, not when you're ready today. We're going to move fast and hard, give him no time to hide assets or prepare a defense. Okay, I said, gripping my coffee mug. I'm sending subpoenas to his firm, requesting all communications between Blake and Autumn Fletcher. I'm also requesting his complete employment file, including any complaints or previous incidents. I want to know if this is a pattern. You think there might be others? Men who cheat on their wives often cheat in other ways too. It's about entitlement, about thinking rules don't apply to them. We'll see what shakes out. Janet continued, her voice becoming sharper. I'm freezing all joint accounts effective immediately. I'm also having the locks changed on your house, the house that's solely in your name because you purchased it before the marriage, correct? Yes. I bought it 2 years before we got married. Perfect. That makes this cleaner. He has no legal claim to the property. We'll also be filing for emergency spousal support, though given your income levels, that's more symbolic than necessary. What it does is establish you as the injured party immediately. Over the next hour, Janet walked me through the strategy. Every move calculated, every action designed to protect me while exposing Blake's misconduct. One more thing, Janet said before we hung up. I'm having Blake served at work. In front of his colleagues. Is that something you're comfortable with? I thought about the messages on his burner phone. The calculations about when to leave me. The dismissal of me as too trusting, too naive. Yes, I said firmly. I'm comfortable with that. Good. Because he deserves to feel a fraction of the humiliation he put you through. Expect him to reach out through mutual friends, family members, anyone he thinks can influence you. Don't engage. Direct everyone to me. 24 hours later, Blake was served divorce papers at his office, documents handed to him during a meeting with 3 colleagues present. According to Patricia, who heard it from Blake's assistant, he'd gone white as a sheet and excused himself immediately. Autumn Fletcher was placed on administrative leave that same afternoon, pending an investigation into workplace conduct violations. Blake's brother called me from 5 different numbers. I blocked them all. His best friend Jeremy left a voicemail. Mallory, Blake is falling apart. He's devastated. Can't you be more understanding? Marriages go through rough patches. Don't throw away 8 years over one mistake. One mistake. 14 months was one mistake. I deleted the message without listening to the whole thing. Patricia visited 3 times that first week. We established a routine. She'd arrive around 4 in the afternoon with fresh groceries, we'd cook dinner together, and then we'd sit on the deck with wine and watch the sunset. I need to apologize, Patricia said on her second visit, her hands wrapped around a glass of Pinot Noir. For what? For raising a son who could do this to someone. For not seeing it sooner. For not teaching him better. Patricia, you're not responsible for Blake's choices. He's a grown man, I know. But a mother always wonders where she went wrong. She stared out at the ocean. My own marriage was happy. His father and I had 43 years together before the cancer took him. Blake saw what a good marriage looked like. He had the blueprint. And still, he chose to do this. We sat in silence for a while, just the sound of waves and seagulls. Do you still love him? Patricia asked finally, her voice gentled. I thought about it. Really thought about it, examining my feelings with the honesty the question deserved. I love who I thought he was, I said slowly. The man who proposed under the cherry blossoms in April. The man who cried at our wedding. The man who held me every month when we got another negative pregnancy test. But that man? I shook my head. He never existed. He was a character Blake played when it suited him. When it was convenient. When he needed something from me. Good, Patricia said firmly. Then you won't be tempted to go back to him. Never, she smiled, reaching over to squeeze my hand. I'm proud of you. I know that's strange coming from his mother, but I am. You're handling this with more grace and strength than most people could manage. I don't feel graceful. I feel angry. All the time, this burning anger. Good. Use it. Channel it. Don't let it consume you, but don't suppress it either. Anger is information. It's telling you that what happened to you is wrong, that you deserved better. Listen to it. The divorce proceedings began in earnest 2 weeks later. Despite having absolutely no legal ground to stand on, Blake fought everything. Every single item, every clause, every settlement offer. His strategy, according to Janet, was to claim I'd emotionally abandoned him. He's saying you were too focused on work, Janet told me over the phone, her voice dripping with contempt. That you neglected the marriage. That the fertility struggles created distance between you, and he sought comfort elsewhere. Comfort, I repeated flatly. His words, not mine. His lawyer is trying to paint him as the victim of a cold, career-obsessed wife who didn't meet his emotional needs. What do? We destroy him in depositions. Which happen next week. Be ready. The deposition took place in a sterile conference room downtown. Blake sat across from me, looking thinner than I remembered. Dark circles under his eyes. Suit slightly rumpled. He couldn't meet my gaze. His lawyer, a young man named Aaron Pettigrew who looked fresh out of law school, tried his best. Mrs. Holloway, can you describe the state of your marriage in the months leading up to your separation? We were distant, I admitted. We'd been trying to conceive for 2 years without success. It put strain on our intimacy. But I believed we were working through it together. I didn't know my husband was working through it with someone else. Did you ever consider that your focus on your career might have contributed to the distance? Janet interjected immediately. Objection. The question implies my client is somehow responsible for her husband's decision to commit adultery. Aaron backpedaled. Let me rephrase. How many hours per week did you work? 40 to 45, typically. About the same as Blake. And how much time did you spend on your business outside of work hours? Minimal. I kept my work at the office. Blake, however, often worked late. Or claimed to. Janet smiled slightly, then began her cross-examination of Blake. She was surgical in her precision. Mr. Holloway, how long did your affair with Autumn Fletcher last? Blake shifted uncomfortably. About 14 months. During those 14 months, how often did you lie to your wife about your whereabouts? I don't know exactly. Would you say dozens of times? Hundreds? Yes. Many times, and during those 14 months, you and your wife were actively trying to conceive a child, correct? Yes. So while your wife was taking fertility medications, tracking her ovulation, undergoing invasive medical procedures, you were having an affair with a coworker. Blake's lawyer tried to object, but Janet steamrolled forward. Let me show you Exhibit A. These are text messages from your phone to Ms. Fletcher, dated 6 months ago. Can you read the highlighted portion for the record? Blake's hands shook as he held the paper. I'm going to leave Mallory. We can finally stop hiding. And Exhibit B, from 4 months ago. The highlighted section, pleased that she'll fight the divorce, but her firm is in her name. I'll be fine financially. And Exhibit C, from 2 months ago. Blake's voice was barely a whisper. I'm waiting for the right moment. After her big project wraps, she'll be too busy to make trouble. Janet leaned back in her chair. Mr. Holloway, does this sound like a man who made an impulsive mistake? Or does this sound like a man who calculated, planned, and strategized how to dismantle his marriage with minimal consequences to himself? Blake said nothing. Your client can answer the question, Janet said to Aaron, or we can let the judge draw their own conclusions today. I wasn't thinking clearly. The affair became more than I expected. But I did love my wife. I do love her. Janet gathered her papers. If this is what love looks like, Mr. Holloway, I'd hate to see hatred. If you're watching this and you believe in women who stand up for themselves, hit that subscribe button right now. Auntie Katie is here to tell you stories of strength, survival, and sweet justice. And drop a comment, Team Mallory or Team Blake? Though I think we all know the answer to that one. The final hearing was scheduled 6 weeks after I'd left. 6 weeks of Blake's desperate attempts to contact me through every channel imaginable. 6 weeks of his family members calling Patricia, begging her to talk sense into me. 6 weeks of him spiraling while I grew stronger. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in a navy suit, pulled my hair back, and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman staring back at me wasn't the same person who'd stood in Whole Foods 6 weeks ago. This woman was harder. Clearer. Unbreakable. Patricia drove me to the courthouse. Whatever happens in there, she said as we parked, remember that you've already won. You got out. You protected yourself. You chose your own dignity over a comfortable lie. That's victory. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Judge Miller, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, presided. She'd built a reputation for being fair but fierce, particularly in cases involving financial abuse or infidelity. Blake sat at the defendant's table, looking defeated. His expensive suit hung loose on his frame. He'd lost weight, and not in a healthy way. Dark circles, sallow skin, shaking hands. For just a moment, I felt something that might have been pity. Just a flicker. Then I remembered the messages. The photos. The calculations. The dismissal of me as too naive. The moment passed. Mr. Pettigrew, Judge Miller said, your client wishes to contest the terms of the prenuptial agreement? Aaron stood, clearly uncomfortable. Your Honor, my client believes the agreement was signed under duress, and that the infidelity clause is punitive rather than protective. Judge Miller raised an eyebrow. Punitive. The clause states that if either party commits adultery, they forfeit any claim to assets acquired during the marriage. That's not punitive, Mr. Pettigrew. That's consequence. Your client committed adultery. The clause applies. Unless you have evidence of duress? The marriage was under strain due to fertility issues, that's not duress. That's life. Motion denied. Janet stood. Your Honor, we'd like to present evidence of Mr. Holloway's calculated deception and financial planning in anticipation of leaving his wife. She presented everything. The burner phone records. The credit card statements showing thousands of dollars spent on hotel rooms and gifts for Autumn. The messages about reviewing the prenup, about waiting for the right moment, about Mallory being too busy to make trouble. Blake's lawyer tried to object, tried to claim the evidence was obtained illegally. Judge Miller shut him down. The phone was found in the marital home, in an area accessible to both parties. There's no expectation of privacy. The evidence stands. When it was my turn to speak, Judge Miller asked if I had anything to add before she made her ruling. I stood, my voice steady and clear. Your Honor, I don't have much to add to what's already been presented. The evidence speaks for itself. But I do want to say this, my husband didn't just break vows. He calculated. He strategized. He waited for what he considered the optimal moment to discard me, when I'd be too busy with work to fight back effectively. He thought I was too trusting, too naive, too compliant to challenge him. I looked at Blake directly for the first time. He was crying silently. He was wrong on all counts. And I hope he learns from this. I hope he becomes a better person. But I'm done being his teacher. I'm done being his safety net. I'm done being anything to him except a chapter he closed through his own choices. Judge Miller nodded slowly. Thank you, Mrs. Holloway. She reviewed her notes for a long moment, and the courtroom fell silent. I've reviewed all the evidence presented today, she said finally. The prenuptial agreement is clear and enforceable. Mr. Holloway's infidelity is not in dispute, he admitted to it under oath. Therefore, pursuant to the terms of the agreement, Mrs. Holloway retains all assets acquired during the marriage, including the marital home, investment accounts, and any jointly held property. Blake's head dropped into his hands. Additionally, Judge Miller continued, Mr. Holloway is ordered to vacate any property currently in Mrs. Holloway's name within 10 days. The divorce is granted, effective immediately. Mrs. Holloway, you're free to return to your maiden name if you choose. The gavel struck. It was over. As we filed out of the courtroom, Blake tried to approach me. Patricia stepped between us immediately, her small frame somehow imposing. Stay away from her, she said to her son, her voice cold as winter. You've done enough damage. Mom, please, no. I raised you better than this, Blake. Your father would be ashamed. I'm ashamed. You lost the best thing that ever happened to you because you were selfish and cruel and thought you could get away with it. Now you live with that. Blake's eyes filled with fresh tears. He looked at me, his mouth opening as if to speak, but I said nothing. Just turned and walked away, Patricia's hand in mine. Outside the courthouse, Janet was already on her phone, confirming the filing of the final documents. She hung up and smiled at me. Congratulations. You're officially divorced and significantly wealthier. Blake walks away with whatever he brought into the marriage, which amounts to his clothes and his degree. What about his car collection? I asked, remembering his precious vintage vehicles stored in a climate-controlled garage. Janet's smile widened. purchased during the marriage with marital funds. They're yours. All 4 of them. I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all, Blake's prized possession, the cars he'd spent hours polishing and maintaining, now belonged to me. Sell them, I told Janet. Sell all of them and donate the money to the women's shelter downtown. The one that helps domestic abuse survivors. Patricia hugged me tight. Perfect, she whispered. Absolutely perfect. 6 months after that courthouse victory, I stood in my new home, not the craftsman house with too many memories, but a sleek waterfront condo with clean lines and a view of the river. My design firm had flourished during the divorce proceedings. Turns out channeling rage into creativity does wonders for business. I'd landed 3 major contracts, hired 2 junior designers, and expanded into commercial spaces. The irony wasn't lost on me. Blake's betrayal had freed me to become more successful than I'd ever been while trying to maintain our marriage. But what I didn't know then, as I stood in my new home surrounded by possibilities, was that Blake's downfall was about to get worse. Much worse, because karma, as it turns out, was just getting warmed up. 6 months after the courthouse doors closed on my marriage, I stood in my new condo watching dawn break over the Willamette River. The space was mine, truly mine in ways the old house never could be again. I'd sold the craftsman with the blue door. A young couple bought it, newlyweds full of hope and plans. I didn't tell them what had happened within those walls. That wasn't their story to carry. I just signed the papers, took my check, and walked away. This new place suited me. 10th floor, corner unit, floor-to-ceiling windows. No, wait. Large windows, the kind that let in floods of natural light without making you feel exposed. Modern kitchen with marble countertops. A home office with built-in shelving. Space designed for living forward, not looking back. My design firm had exploded in those 6 months. Word spreads fast in creative industries, and apparently my story had become legendary in certain circles. The woman who caught her husband's affair via misdirected text and took him for everything I'd worried people might pity me. Instead, they respected me. 3 major commercial contracts landed in my lap within 2 months of the divorce. A boutique hotel in the Pearl District. An upscale restaurant downtown. A tech startup's new offices. My rates doubled, and clients paid without negotiation. I hired 2 junior designers, both women, both talented, both hungry for success. Together, we transformed the business from my solo operation into something bigger, something with real potential. You're different, my assistant Kendra said one afternoon as we reviewed fabric samples. Sharper somehow. More confident. Turns out getting rid of dead weight does wonders for your posture, I replied. She laughed, but she was right. I was different. The woman who'd stood frozen in Whole Foods, strawberries in hand, was gone. In her place stood someone who knew her worth, who trusted her instincts, who refused to shrink herself for anyone's comfort. Patricia and I maintained our Thursday lunch tradition. We'd moved it from the beach house to a bistro downtown, halfway between her home and my office. Every week, same table, same time. How's he doing? I asked one Thursday, because despite everything, I was still human enough to wonder. Patricia's expression tightened. Not well. He lost his job, as expected. The firm couldn't keep him after the investigation revealed 3 other inappropriate relationships with subordinates over the years. 3 others? My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Autumn wasn't the first. Just the longest. The firm settled with 2 former employees who'd filed complaints that were buried. They paid Blake to resign quietly, but his reputation in the industry is destroyed. No one will hire him. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I just felt tired. And Autumn? Left her husband, as you know. She and Blake tried to make it work for about 3 months. Moved to California together, rented an apartment in San Francisco. But relationships built on betrayal don't have strong foundations. Patricia stirred her soup thoughtfully. They imploded spectacularly, from what I hear. Constant fighting. Accusations. She blamed him for her losing her career. He blamed her for being the reason he lost everything. Where is he now? Back in Portland, living in a studio apartment in Gresham. Working as a junior analyst at a firm that doesn't know his history. Making about a third of what he used to make. Patricia met my eyes. I'm telling you this not to make you feel sorry for him, but so you understand. Actions have consequences. He's living his I nodded slowly. I didn't feel sorry for Blake. But I didn't feel the burning anger anymore either. Just a distant acknowledgement that justice, in its way, had been served. And you? Patricia asked. Are you dating? Casually. Nothing serious. I'm not ready for serious. I smiled slightly. Maybe I'll never be ready again. And that's okay. I'd rather be alone and whole than partnered and broken. Smart woman, Patricia said, raising her water glass in a toast. To knowing your worth. To knowing my worth, I echoed. What I didn't tell Patricia at that lunch was that I'd started hearing things through the professional grapevine. Things about Blake that made his downfall even more complete than I'd realized. My former colleague Denise called me one evening, her voice hushed with gossip. Mallory, you're not going to believe what I heard about Blake, try me. At this point, nothing surprises me. He's being sued. By Autumn's ex-husband. For alienation of affection. I sat up straighter. That's actually a thing? In some states, yes. Autumn's husband is claiming Blake deliberately interfered in his marriage, causing emotional distress and financial harm. He's seeking damages of $500,000. Does Blake have $500,000? Not anymore. But the lawsuit alone is costing him. Legal fees, court costs. And get this, Autumn is refusing to testify on his behalf. She says he manipulated her too, that he promised her things he never delivered. The irony was almost beautiful. Blake, who'd manipulated me so thoroughly, was now being accused of manipulating his mistress. More news trickled in over the following weeks. Blake's mother, not Patricia, his biological mother who'd left when he was young and reconnected when he became successful, had sued him for money he'd borrowed and never repaid. His brother stopped speaking to him entirely after Blake asked for a loan and was refused. The man who'd calculated every move of his affair had failed to calculate what happened when everything fell apart. Then came the news that shocked me most. Janet called on a Tuesday morning, her voice tight with barely suppressed glee. You need to hear this. Blake's firm? The one that paid him to leave quietly? They're being sued by 2 former female employees for creating a hostile work environment and covering up sexual harassment. Blake's name is all over the lawsuit. They're seeking damages in the millions. What does that have to do with me? Nothing legally. But the publicity? The details coming out about his pattern of behavior? It validates everything you said. Every accusation his family and friends claimed you exaggerated. It's all true. All documented. All public record now. I thought about Blake's brother's voicemail from months ago. Don't throw away 8 years over one mistake. One mistake. One mistake had turned into a pattern of predatory behavior spanning years. There's more, Janet continued. The firm's insurance company is investigating whether they can recover the settlement money they paid Blake. If they prove he lied during the exit interview, which he did, they can sue him personally. Blake's house of cards wasn't just collapsing. It was burning to the ground, and he was trapped inside. 8 months after I'd walked out of that courtroom a free woman, my phone rang from an unknown number. I'd gotten better about not answering these, but something made me pick up. Mallory? Blake's voice, but different. Smaller. Broken in ways I'd never heard before. Blake, I said neutrally, neither warm nor cold. I don't have the right to call you. I know that. But I needed to say something, and I couldn't live with myself if I didn't. I waited. Silence was sometimes the best response. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. For everything. For the affair, for the lies, for the calculation. For treating you like an obstacle instead of a person. For all of it. Okay, I said simply. I destroyed the best thing in my life. I know that now. I was selfish and cruel, and I thought I could get away with it because you loved me. Because you were too good to suspect me. He was crying now, unmistakably. You were right about everything. I didn't love you the way you deserved. I loved what you gave me, the stability, the respect, the home. But I didn't love you. I don't think I knew how. Blake, now, please. Let me finish. I'm in therapy now. Real therapy, not the kind I suggested we do when I was trying to manipulate you into staying. And I'm learning things about myself that are hard. Really hard. I used people. I used you most of all. And I'm sorry. I stood at my window, looking out at the city lights, letting his words wash over me. I heard about the lawsuits, I said finally. The firm, Autumn's ex-husband. Your mother. Yeah. He laughed bitterly. Karma's real, turns out. I'm basically broke. Living in a studio apartment. Working a job I'm overqualified for. Lost most of my friends. My family barely speaks to me. And I deserve all of it. Yes, I agreed. You do. I wanted you to know that I understand now. What I did to you. And I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve to ask for it. I just needed you to know that I see it now. All of it. I was quiet for a long moment. Part of me wanted to rage at him, to list every hurt, every betrayal. But I was tired of giving him space in my head. Blake, I appreciate the apology. I do. It means something that you finally acknowledged what you did. But it doesn't change anything. We're done. Permanently. And I've moved on. Are you happy? The question surprised me with its sincerity. Yes, I said, and realized it was true. I'm happy. Really, genuinely happy. Good. That's good. He sounded like he was crying harder now. You deserve that. You always did. Blake, one more thing, yeah? Get help. Real help. Figure out why you did what you did, not just to me, but to all those other women. Break the pattern. Be better. Not for me, I don't care anymore. But for whoever comes next. For yourself, I'm trying. I swear I'm trying, then I wish you well with that. But we can't be friends. We can't be anything. This is goodbye, yeah. I understand. Goodbye, Mallory. And, thank you. For everything you gave me that I didn't deserve. I hung up and blocked the number. Then I poured myself a glass of wine and stood at my window, watching the city breathe below me. The call didn't make me sad. It didn't make me angry. It just felt like the final page of a book I'd finished months ago. Closing it completely, putting it back on the shelf, moving on to the next story. If this story is resonating with you, if you see yourself or someone you love in Mallory's journey, hit that share button. Send this to someone who needs to hear that betrayal doesn't have to break you, it can remake you. And smash that like button if you believe in women who choose themselves. I end the year following my divorce. I learned more about myself than I had in the previous 35 years combined. Some lessons came easy. Others hurt like broken glass. I learned that love without respect isn't love at all. It's just need dressed up in pretty words. I learned that being alone isn't the same as being lonely. Some of my happiest moments that year were spent by myself reading in coffee shops, walking through art galleries, cooking elaborate meals for one. I learned that anger, properly channeled, is power. Not destructive power, but creative force. Every time I felt rage at what Blake had done, I poured it into my work. My designs became bolder, more confident. Clients noticed. Revenue doubled, then tripled. I learned that family isn't always blood. Patricia became more important to me than my own distant relatives. My employees became friends. The women I met in a divorce support group became sisters. I learned that closure isn't something someone else can give you. It's something you give yourself by deciding the story is over. Most importantly, I learned that I was enough. Not enough for Blake, he'd made that clear. But enough for myself. Enough to build a life worth living. Enough to be happy without needing someone else to complete me. The narrative we're fed about women and happiness is so often tied to romantic love. Find the right man, and everything falls into place. But what I discovered was this: find yourself, and everything else becomes optional instead of essential. Dating casually taught me what I would and wouldn't accept. The first man who checked his phone constantly during dinner? I left before dessert arrived. The one who tried to tell me my business success was intimidating? Blocked before the night ended. The one who wanted to move too fast, pushing for commitment after 3 dates? Gently declined. I wasn't playing games. I was establishing boundaries. Knowing my worth. Refusing to shrink myself to fit someone else's comfort zone, and slowly, something interesting happened. I stopped looking for validation in other people's eyes. My success at work didn't need Blake's acknowledgement to be real. My happiness didn't need anyone's permission to exist. The woman who'd stood in Whole Foods, confused and hurt, had transformed into someone who walked through the world differently. Head higher. Steps more certain. Voice clearer when saying no. Exactly 1 year after that misdirected text message, I hosted a dinner party at my condo. Patricia, of course. Kendra from work. The 2 designers I'd hired. 3 women from my divorce support group. Janet Morrison, who'd become a friend beyond just being my lawyer. We drank good wine. We ate the meal I'd spent all day preparing. We laughed until our sides hurt. To Mallory, Patricia said, raising her glass. Who taught us all that the best revenge is living well. I'll drink to that, Janet added. Though the actual revenge of taking him for everything didn't hurt either. We all laughed. Speech, Kendra demanded. Come on, this is your 1-year anniversary of freedom. Say something profound. I stood, glass in hand, looking at these women who'd supported me through the worst year of my life. A year ago today, I got a text message that destroyed my world. And I thought that was the end of my story. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. I paused, feeling emotion rise in my throat. I'm not going to stand here and say I'm grateful for what Blake did, because I'm not. Betrayal sucks. Divorce sucks. Rebuilding your life from scratch sucks, but, I continued, I am grateful for who I became in the aftermath. For finding strength I didn't know I had. For learning what I deserve and refusing to accept less. For building a life that's entirely mine. To new beginnings, I toasted. To new beginnings, they echoed. Later that night, after everyone had left and I'd cleaned up the kitchen, I sat on my balcony with the last of the wine. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I didn't recognize. This is probably weird, but I saw you at the art gallery last week and I've been trying to work up the courage to ask if you'd like to get coffee sometime. No pressure. Just coffee. James. I smiled. A year ago, this would have sent me into anxiety. Should I? Shouldn't I? What if it goes wrong? What if he's like Blake? No, I just felt curious. Maybe interested. Definitely in control. I typed back, coffee sounds nice. But I'm going to need your last name and a link to your social media. I've learned to do my research. His response came quickly, smart woman. James Porter. And I'd expect nothing less. I looked him up. Clean social media. No red flags. Seemed genuine. Maybe I'd go for coffee. Maybe I wouldn't. Either way, I was fine. That was the real victory. Not that I'd destroyed Blake in court. Not that I'd rebuilt my business. Not even that I'd made it through the pain. The victory was that I was whole again. Complete in myself. Happy without needing someone else to make me so, and if someone came along who added to that happiness rather than defining it? Well, that might be nice. But it wasn't necessary. I was already enough. So what's the moral of this story? What's the lesson I want you to take away? It's this: betrayal reveals character. Not yours, you didn't cause it. but theirs. And more importantly, it reveals who you can become when you refuse to let it destroy you. Blake's betrayal showed me that I'm stronger than I thought. That I can survive losing everything I thought mattered and discover what actually does matter. That I can choose myself without guilt or apology. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, whether it's a cheating spouse, a betrayal by family, a friendship that turned toxic, I want you to hear this. You will survive this. You will rebuild. You will find strength you didn't know existed. And one day, you'll look back at this moment as the turning point when you finally chose yourself. Don't settle for scraps of affection from people who should be giving you feasts. Don't accept lies wrapped in love language. Don't shrink yourself to fit into someone else's comfort zone. Know your worth. Then add tax, and remember, the best revenge isn't destroying them. It's becoming so genuinely happy that their existence becomes irrelevant to yours. Blake thought I was too naive to fight back. He was catastrophically wrong, and if someone is underestimating you right now, prove them wrong. Not for them, for yourself. Before you go, I need you to do 4 things for me. First, hit that subscribe button for Voice of Auntie Katie. More stories like this are coming, and you don't want to miss them. Second, drop a comment telling me, what would you have done in Mallory's situation? Would you have handled it differently? I read every comment, and your perspective matters. Third, share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're stronger than they think. And finally, hit that like button if you believe that betrayal doesn't define you, how you rise from it does. Remember, my loves, your story isn't over just because someone walked out of a chapter. Sometimes they're leaving to make room for better characters. This is Auntie Katie, reminding you that you are worthy, you are strong, and you are never alone in your struggles. I'll see you in the next story. Until then, choose yourself. Always choose yourself. Stay blessed, stay strong, and stay tuned.